All right, 5a, find a third degree polynomial equation with rational coefficients that have roots of 1 and 2 minus I. Well, 2 minus I we know is imaginary, so its conjugate must be a root as well. So the conjugate would be 2 plus I. So there are 3 roots for a third degree polynomial. So now we're going to use the factor theorem, saying the polynomial is going to be x minus each root, the product of that. So x minus negative 1 times x minus, in parentheses, 2 minus I, times x minus, in parentheses, 2 plus I. Now all we got to do is distribute that out. So we're going to set equals x plus 1, and now all I'm going to do on this step is I'm going to distribute the negative sign in front of each parenthesis. So it's going to be x minus 2 plus I times x minus 2 minus I. Okay, make sure you understand what we're doing. We're just distributing that negative sign so we can get rid of that parentheses. Okay, now we're going to multiply these together. This is a grouping of 3 and a grouping of 3, so we're going to have 9 terms when we're done. So let's go x times x is x squared, x times negative 2, negative 2x, x times negative I be negative xi. Okay, there's no more terms in the second and the last grouping, so go to the next term, negative 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 2 times negative I is positive 2i. Go to the last term, I. I times x is xi. I times negative 2 is negative 2i. I times negative I, what's what I'm doing over here, is going to be negative I squared. Well, I squared we know is negative 1, so that's going to be negative 1, which is going to be just plus 1. All right. Now, let's sum like terms. X squared's by itself, so it drops. Negative 2x, I see another negative 2x, and that's it. So negative 2x minus plus negative 2x is negative 4x. So I have a negative xi, I have a positive xi, so they're going to cancel. I have a positive 4 and a positive 1, so they're going to add together to be plus 4, or plus 5. And then I have a positive 2i and a negative 2i, so they cancel. So I'm left with x squared minus 4x plus 5. I still got to drop the first linear factor. Now I've got to multiply those. Let's again start with our x. X times x squared is x cubed. X times negative 4x is negative 4x squared. And x times 5 is 5x. Going to the next term, to the 1, and I'm going to stack these. So I'm going to now distribute the 1. 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times negative 4x is negative 4x. 1 times 5 is 5. I'm just going to add like terms. So it's going to be x cubed, negative 4x plus x would be minus 3x squared. 5x minus 4x is plus x plus 5 equals 0. So the answer looks like it is C. All right, 5b. Find a fourth degree polynomial equation with the rational coefficients that have roots of I and 2i. Well, if I and 2i are roots, that means their conjugates must be roots as well, so that's negative I and negative 2i. So use the factor theorem to find the equation. So the polynomial equals x minus I times x minus negative I times x minus 2i times x minus negative 2i. So I should have 4 groupings, 4 linear factors, and I do. Now what do we remember? What does that grouping and this grouping right here look like? Is that a difference of squares? See x minus I and x plus I? Absolutely. X minus 2i, x plus 2i. If you remember, we can rewrite that as a squared minus b squared, so that would be x squared minus I squared. This one would be x squared minus, in parentheses, 2i squared. What did we say I squared was? It's negative 1. So it would be x squared minus negative 1. Okay, over here, the reason I grouped the 2i is because remember when we square, the exponent applies to the coefficient and the variable, or the I. So we can rewrite this now as x squared minus 2 squared is 4, I squared. So it's going to be x squared minus 4i squared. And what do we say I squared was before? Negative 1. So what is negative 4 times negative 1? Well, negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. So I'd have x squared plus 4. So now I'm going to multiply x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 4. So x squared times x squared, when we add your exponents, to be x to the 4th. X squared times 4 would be 4x squared. 1 times x squared would be 1x squared. And 1 times 4 would be 4. Sum like terms, so I get x to the 4th plus 5x squared plus 4 equals 0. The answer would be A. All right, hopefully that clears up any questions you had on 6.5.